The Sony ZV-E10 was released in July 2021. Since then, Sony has released 2 more cameras in their ZV line. The ZV line is their more beginner, more compact, more video-focused line, and the big question is, with it being a year and a half since the release of the Sony ZV-E10, is it still worth it, or is there better options for the same price? I'm Sam Holtz, and I've had the Sony ZV-E10 for a year and a half, and I really enjoyed using it. I filmed a range of things from music videos to short films, and I really enjoyed using it. But the big question is, would I, if I was buying a camera today, buy the Sony ZV-E10, or would I look at other brands or other Sony cameras? So I'm first going to look at the 3 Sony ZV cameras. Those 3 cameras are the Sony ZV-E10, which is £579, the Sony ZV-1F, which is £550, and the Sony ZV-1, which is £599. The main difference between the 3 cameras, and what I believe makes the biggest difference, is whether it has interchangeable lenses or one fixed lens. The Sony ZV-1F and the Sony ZV-1 both have a fixed lens that you can't change. However, the Sony ZV-E10 has changeable lenses that fits with any Sony E-mount lens. This makes the camera much more versatile, and it means you can upgrade it just by buying new glass rather than having to buy a whole new camera. Another difference in the camera is the sensor. The Sony ZV-E10 has a Sony APS-C sensor, whereas the other 2 have a 1-inch sensor, which is smaller, which means it has a lower depth of field and a slightly worse low light performance. But other than that, there are quite a few similarities between the 3 cameras. For example, all cameras have the same flip-out screen. They all take 4K videos up to 30 frames a second, have 1080p at 120 FPS, and they all have the same great active stabilization. So overall, the fact that the Sony ZV-E10 has interchangeable lenses and a slightly better sensor, I believe that it makes it the best option amongst these 3 cameras. However, something to consider is, although the camera is slightly cheaper, you will have to buy lenses, but if you get second-hand lenses from sites like MPB, they can be pretty cheap. So what about other brands? Is there other cameras from other brands that have been released since the ZV-E10 that are a better option for the same price? Sony's main competitor when it comes to cameras is Canon. There's a big debate of which camera brand is better, and Canon's competitor to the more budget line is Canon's camera, the M50 Mark II. The Canon M50 Mark II costs £589, so £20 more than the Sony ZV-E10. The Canon M50 is also an interchangeable lens camera. The mount is EFM, which is, I think, quite a big downside, as there aren't many lenses that Canon makes of this mount. So if you want to use Canon's whole range of lenses, you'll have to get an adapter, which is different to the Sony ZV-E10, which has a E-mount lens, which is all of Sony's cameras have this lens. In terms of video quality, they both shoot 4K, however the Sony ZV-E10 shoots 4K up to 30 frames per second, and the Canon shoots it up to 24 frames per second, which isn't really very important. Most people shoot 24 frames per second, apart from some people that like 30 frames per second, but that is definitely not a deal breaker if you want to go for the Canon M50. Then the Sony ZV-E10 shoots 1080p HD up to 120 frames per second, but the Canon only shoots 720p up to 120 frames per second, which is much worse quality, and if you're wanting to shoot slow motion, the Sony ZV-E10 is a better option. So the M50 and the Sony are pretty similar. You're kind of splitting hairs when deciding which to go for, but personally, the fact that Sony has E-mount lenses, whereas the M50 has EFM mount lenses, which people have rumoured that Canon will be discontinuing soon, I think makes the Sony a much better option, and that is why I chose the Sony ZV-E10 rather than the M50. So now my final thoughts on whether the Sony ZV-E10 is worth it over a year and a half after its initial release. And my answer is yes, definitely, for the main reasons of the great bang for your buck in terms of price, the versatility of having Sony E-mount, which means you can break into what I think is the best range of lenses from different brands, from Sony to Sigma to Tamron. I think it is definitely the best option in this price range. Even with newer cameras that are more expensive, I would rather go for the Sony ZV-E10 for the reasons that I've stated before. So there we go. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you've got any questions or anything to add, let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video or found it interesting, give it a like and subscribe. So there we go. I'll see you in the next video. Thank you very much for watching. Bye.